the Clinton Board of Selectmen meeting for July 1st. Before I open the meeting, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Mary Ann Castillo. She served the town as a member of the Personnel Board and the Conservation Commission, and she was one classy lady. She was a businesswoman in town too, but she was always a big supporter of the town of Clinton. So a moment of silence for her. Okay. First item on our agenda is reorganization. The floor is open for nominations for chairman.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Selectman Kerrigan for chairman.
Are there any other nominations? There being none, all those in favor of Sean Kerrigan as the next chairman indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. She's back later next time. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Connolly for his leadership over the past year. It hasn't been easy, but we've never been in doubt about where we were going, so thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
I will now accept nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Selectman Conley for vice chair.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all is in favor of Mr. Connolly? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
I will now accept nominations for clerk. Not all at once.
How about a volunteer?
I'll volunteer.
It's an easy lift. All is in favor of Mr. DeVoe? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item of business is public comment. Is this on? How does that work?
That's on.
Okay.
Oh, the phone is, the number's published.
Okay.
So anyone that wants to call in.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the review of minutes. The minutes for the meeting of June 17, 2020 are available for approval. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve the minutes.
Second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Next up, Brian Arendez from the Hubcraft, 1R and 3R Green Street, the former Weetabix company, is here to talk about their proposal for a marijuana cultivation facility. Thank you for joining us, please. Thanks for making the trip. I understand you came a long way.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody, for having us here. Beautiful city, beautiful town. My name is Howard Tanya. I am the operator for the Hubcraft out in Fitchburg. And so here is Brian, and he represents the ownership on the property that purchased the Weetabix facility. We currently run an operation out in California. We have operated a greenhouse facility and a retail and manufacturing facility in Los Angeles and as well as in Salinas. We're expanding out here. We're not currently operational right now, but our group is still operational out there. We are awaiting our provisional license out in Pittsburgh, and we are due to start construction out in September. Our engineering and design is pretty much towards the latter end with irrigation left, and we are now focusing our sights on the wonderful facility down the street here.
Right. Does the board have any questions? I know we met with the consultants last time.
Right. The open question is, what is the generation plant all about? Is that something typical for marijuana production facilities, or is it something unique to your application?
In a marijuana cultivation facility, you generally need a lot of power and a lot of cooling. And what's very unique about that, and it was Keith Miller from National Grid who recommended that we go down this route, and we set up a cogeneration facility within the same location as that building. The reason for that is because the building receives 45,000 cubic feet per hour of gas, which is a lot of natural gas. And the recommendation from National Grid is that we utilize that gas for generation of power, and we use the waste heat from that to generate the cooling for the facility. Cannabis facilities require a lot of cooling. because you need to take the moisture away from the air to dry the air, and it relies heavily on gas chillers, if not a cogeneration facility.
So the fuel for the plant is natural gas?
Good?
I'm good.
Anyone else? Good? Okay. I believe the next step is to enter into negotiations for a community host agreement.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the applicant to meet with the town administrator and town council to negotiate a community host agreement consistent with the previous agreements that we've entered into.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to enter into negotiations with town council for a community host agreement. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Thank you for coming
luck.
out. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to having you join the community.
Oh, we'd love to be here. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 2020 livery license renewals. The board has received the following applications for the annual livery license renewal. The taxi livery ride transportation 423 Water Street in Clinton. What is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we authorize the livery license renewal as requested.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second to approve the livery license renewal. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Administrative business. Nothing to review tonight. How about old and new business? Elevated Inc. Host Community Agreement. The town solicitor has completed review of the draft host community agreement for Elevated Inc. to operate a cannabis cultivation facility at 56 Sterling Street in Clinton. What's the board's pleasure on this one?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize the signature on the agreement.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve the community host agreement with Elevated Inc. at 56 Sterling Street for a cannabis cultivation facility. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Worcester Regional Transit Authority has sent an annual agreement to the town of Clinton to provide senior van service through the Council on Aging. WRTA will provide the buses in a payment of $50,205, and the town provides the drivers and vehicle insurance for the fiscal year. This agreement must be signed by the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we authorize the contract with Worcester Regional Transit Authority.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the annual contract with the Worcester Regional Transit Authority. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Facilities and Grounds Union Contract Ratification. This is something we already funded retroactive raises for the prior fiscal year and second-year raises through the fiscal 2021 budget, but we need to ratify the collective bargaining agreement with the Facilities and Grounds Union for the period of July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the board authorize the Facility and Grounds Union Contract agreement.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Fiscal 2019 year-end budget transfers. The town accountant has prepared a list of budget line item transfers to close out the fiscal year. There's information in your packet if anybody has any questions for Michael.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we authorize the fiscal year 2020 year-end transfers and reserve fund transfers as presented by the town accountant.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Moving along. Any other older or new business? I guess.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
With bars and restaurants opening up, I just have overheard, and I know we're starting to see in some, not all, just a little bit of pushback on the Board of Health in regard to their social distancing guidelines. I think, to my recommendation, I think this board needs to be clear that it's going to support the Board of Health, and it's not going to tolerate businesses refusing to adhere to the Board of Health social distancing guidelines. If they do have issue with anything that the Board of Health is imposing on them, they can certainly come to Selectmen's meetings, or they can approach the town. While they are discussing that matter, though, they still have to adhere to the guidelines that are in place. So we certainly want to have an open forum for people to discuss the guidelines, but they have to be adhered to. And the other thing that the Board of Health has done a great job, but I'm starting to think, with all these businesses opening up, I mean, is it fair to ask 5 part-time individuals who are giving up their time to monitor every business in town? Because I do think that, it's just human nature. When bars open up, they're going to push it, and if we don't have a decent frequency of checking in on these businesses, it's going to continue to be pushed. And the last thing that we want to do is have any sort of an outbreak and have to take a step backward. We want to keep moving forward, keeping the businesses going. So I'm just kind of interested, or I'd like to possibly, leave the floor open to discussion for assistance that we may be able to give to the Board of Health, and they may choose not to take the assistance, and we can discuss that with them later. But I think as a sign of support, that we can, maybe at this meeting just start talking about a couple things that we can do to help the Board of Health out, in addition to showing support and letting businesses know we're here to support them, but we are not going to tolerate them not adhering to what the Board of Health is instructing them to do.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the Board of Health has been doing an outstanding job since the beginning of this crisis. They've been putting in way beyond what is reasonable to expect from both the employees and the volunteer board members. And I did discuss this briefly with the town administrator. We have, under the CARES Act, there's funds available that can be reimbursed by the CARES Act to communities that expend money in direct reaction to the issues presented by this COVID crisis. So I'd like to make a motion, if I may, to authorize or make the Board of Health aware that at this time there's $25,000 available for their use to implement the ongoing, constantly evolving, changing regulations unique to the situation, and they can use that as overtime for their existing inspectors, for hiring additional staff to support them, or even buying equipment that they deem necessary to move forward.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? I'd just like to add, that I've spoken with Steve a few times a week, and it's incredible the work and the level-headedness that he presents. This is a volunteer committee that didn't sign on for this, as none of us did, but the workload that they've taken on, and just the class, and they're unflapped. It's wonderful to watch, and it's fantastic that you can see that in a town this small, that a board like that called into service like this can stand up. So I want to echo what Ed said. Our numbers are fantastic. They're posted online and on the Facebook page every day, at least every day that's updated. And for a while we were up, for a while we were down. When phase 1 opened, we had a spike that I was afraid was going to be headed in the right direction, but that only lasted about a week. So we're actually underwater right now from when I started a graph of keeping track of this. And the reason that is because the Board of Health has done such a good job, and we all have done such a good job of following these basic safety precautions of wearing a mask in public when you can't be 6 feet apart, washing your hands, of staying away from people who are at risk. So I know that everybody wants to get out, and I know it's going to be a great summer, but we have to keep following the rules, and we're taking the lead from the governor, not from here. So if you have a problem with which phase you're in, you should talk to the State House, and please let them know. Otherwise, we're just trying to enforce the rules that we've been given, and please don't take it out on our health agents who, again, have enough going on. That being said, I appreciate this motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
And, Mr. Chair,
Please.
if I can also add, just an idea, and we can discuss it with the Board of Health and with town administrator, but I don't know if it would be worth reaching out to some of our surrounding towns just to discuss what their enforcement strategy is, just to try to see if we can get alignment, because all we can do is talk to them and see what they're going to do, but what you don't want to happen is have one town going out of their way to really do a good job, and then having another town, not going to say that any town would do that, but if the next town over isn't adhering to a similar strategy, it's just going to, the business is just going to either pour into, and then like those bars are going to have issues, and they're our neighbors, so it's just an idea, something for thought we can consider. Nothing official, obviously.
Michael, you in contact with anybody about that stuff? Is there any regional efforts? I know the Board of Health is part of a regional consortium, but...
Mr. Chair, I haven't in specific terms of enforcement. Certainly, we do have a local town administrator group, and then we have a weekly call-in for the state town administrator group. So we're keeping up on what we're all doing in that sense, but not specifically with enforcement through the Board of Health. But the Board of Health also is part of that health consortium through Fitchburg and Mr. Gardner. So I know they get a lot of guidance from them as well. But I'll certainly be willing to speak with the Board of Health and any of my colleagues and see how they're handling it in our area. But you're right. I think throughout this whole process, we wanted to try to be following the state guidelines, but consistent with what other communities are doing, so that we're all on the same page. So I certainly can try to look up where we're at on all that.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other old or new business?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just ask for, on our next agenda, I had already addressed a list and status of all the marijuana establishment businesses in town that we've actually met with and set up. And also, I'd like to put on the agenda, we spent the last year and a half, 2 years, reviewing the status of and the terms of appointed boards and commissions, and I would like to put that, there's a bunch of annual reappointments to be put on the agenda, as well as at least initiating the process of filling Mr. Kovas's seat on the Parks and Recreation Commission, and the 2 seats, Mary Ann Castillo's seats on the Personnel Board, the Conservation Commission, and we have a couple of ongoing vacancies on Council on Aging, and I think one other.
Okay.
So if we could have all that possibly on our agenda for the next meeting, to be called by the chair when he feels appropriate.
Of course. Yeah, I've also gotten, I'll take a look at the subcommittee appointments and see where Mr. Jakonski is leaving some holes. And what else was there on there? We covered Parks and Rec, so, and then goals and objectives, we'll have to send something around about that.
In regard to Parks and Rec,
Yep.
that would have to be
A joint meeting.
we'd have to send a notice to Parks and Rec of the resignation and request a joint meeting, or they request a joint meeting with us, is that?
Right, exactly. And that was, Mr. Chair, which I was going to ask if the board, the process would be that the town clerk will now inform the Parks and Rec Board that there's a vacancy on their commission through the resignation, that commission would need then to request a joint meeting with the Selectmen, because it would be a joint appointment with the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members. So if the Parks and Rec Commission is so inclined to come to the board's next meeting, would you want me to go forward with putting a notice in the paper to solicit candidates, or
Yes.
Or wait till that meeting?
No.
We'll keep it moving. Yeah, so we need a motion for that?
Get it rolling.
That's a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and second to authorize the town administrator to request a joint meeting with the Parks and Rec Commission and to advertise for the new vacancy. Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, thank you.
Unless
That way I'll notify the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, but at least that'll give both boards at least some candidates to review at that meeting instead of just starting the
Yeah.
process. Thank you.
Unless, of course, Mr. Kopus reconsiders his resignation and decides to fill 2 roles.
People don't like
Or
that.
not.
Mr. Chair, one last thing under old and new business.
Yes.
This Tuesday, 7 o'clock at the Town Hall in the main hall, Director of Economic Development, along with Discover Clinton, is doing a presentation to small businesses. It's going to be mainly focused on restaurants and bars and working through the phases. There should be something in the item on it on Friday, but it's we're going to talk about there's still some programs available that assistance. We are going to talk about some social distancing guidelines. We're going to talk about the steps somebody would have to go to try to get additional seating outside. If bars would like to pursue possibly converting to a restaurant, what are the requirements? What are the minimum, like X, Y, and Z that you have to do to even be considered to do something like that? So that's going to be the subject of that presentation. It will be on Zoom also for a remote, if people want to remote into the meeting. And we'll be filming it and putting it on the cable channel YouTube as a reference, so that even if people miss it, they can go and review it. And obviously, we will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So just again, it's July 7th, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, Town Hall.
Thank you for working with them on that, and thank you to Discover Clinton. I just wanted, just another example of, we're not trying to get in the way here. We, as I've said, we want to cut the red tape, not corners. So if you have questions about it, or if you're confused what's available for you, come on out or check it, or talk to Ed, or talk to Phil Duffy, or talk to Discover Clinton. There are resources, and I know it's a confusing time, but we're trying to be available for everyone so that we all get where we want to be. So thank you, Ed, and I'll be there on Tuesday. Any other old or new business? Committee reports. Cable Committee met last week. It was actually, I have to say, it was probably one of our best meetings. It was terrific. We reviewed some proposed organizational structure with Chris Asikas, who is well known for working in the Lancaster and Sterling cable organization. He's been helping us out as a consultant. We have some decisions to make as far as what we want to be when we grow up, but it's wonderful to have this kind of structure and to be able to choose, hopefully, a path forward. We also finalized a job description, and I'll be whittling that down so we can post it for an executive director.
And we get approval for that.
And, right, we get approval through the Personnel Board, so that's ready to go. We purchased some equipment to replace some old and damaged equipment to hopefully make the broadcasting experience easier and better on your eyes. And we also reviewed final edits on our long-awaited contract, which should be going down to Philadelphia soon, or hopefully.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I did so in follow-up to that meeting, I did send a handful of comments that we had to the Comcast rep, so I expect I'll hear back from them probably early next week.
Terrific.
And I think we should be able to, I'm optimistic that they'll give us what we want. I think we should be able to wrap this thing up next week, I hope.
Awesome. Any other committee reports? So we'll talk about our next meeting. Usually we go on a summer schedule.
Mr. Chairman, if I may suggest that we leave the setting of the next meeting up to the discretion of the chairman after consulting with the town administrator on what types of things are going to need action, and how soon or how late we can go.
I appreciate your counsel. Thank you.
Have a motion?
Well,
I don't think
we need that. I will let you guys know. And I should have led the meeting with this, but I want to welcome Matt Kobus, obviously, to the board. He ran a great campaign. We're really excited to have his enthusiasm on board. We'll miss on Parks and Rec, but I'm sure we'll find somebody else, and we're lucky to have you here. So can't wait to see what you do.
And also, thank you to everyone that ran, always encouraging people to run for local office.
Yep.
I thought it was a great race, and everyone ran a good campaign. It's just nice to see. It was nice to see 4 people running for 2 spots.
I want to also thank the town clerk's office and everyone who worked the election. If you didn't know with the masks, I don't think you would know that there was a pandemic going on. It was that smooth. It was everyone was terrific as far as cooperating with the new procedure and the new traffic flow. It was a decent turnout despite what's going on. And I want to thank Holly and Becky and everybody who made that happen. It was a great day. So thank you.
One last, I know people have already congratulated him, but the town moderator, Terry, at the town meeting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
did a great job. I mean, of course, you know me, my collar was getting a little,
Wandering around, I know where
188
you
people. My collar was getting a little tight, but as far as running the meeting itself, I thought Terry did a great job, and I thought that Holly did a great job. Holly Sargent did a great job with getting everything set up and the protective Lexan and everything for people, so it was a good job.
I agree. Any other business? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Have a good night, Clinton. Thank you.
And just for the record, that's probably the shortest selectmen's meeting I've ever attended.
I'll credit my vice.
Yes.